I'm in some kind of confusion. Let's see, my appendix grew back, but I had it taken out years ago. What about you?
I came in for a hernia operation. You cut off one of my mistake.
Say what?
But look, they got this Korean doctor just set foot in this country. Make sure you don't get him.
That's right.
He's the one made the mistake on me.
Korean.
How do you go?
That's the cat did me.
Sounds like a real stormy romance.
I don't care much what it sounds like to you, Cop. All I know is that I went a couple of laps around the track with him, and I ended up with the short end of the stick.
Come on.
No, wait a minute, man. I've been in prison for 3 years. You know, if this lady's been getting the short end of the stick, maybe you'd like to go a couple laps around the track with us.
Very funny. Richard Pryor and Eddie Murphy, two great comedy stars right now at radically different points in their film careers. Murphy's career taking off at age 22, and Pryor having tasted both success and tragedy at age 42. And the varied film careers of Richard Pryor and Eddie Murphy, the two hottest comedy talents in the movies today, is the subject of this special edition of At the Movies. Joining me in the balcony is Roger Ebert, film critic of the Chicago Sun-Times.
And across the aisle from me is Gene Siskel, film critic of the Chicago Tribune. We're calling this special show Pryor to Murphy, and I think we both found ourselves agreeing over the last few years that the most consistently exciting comic actors in the movies are named Richard Pryor and Eddie Murphy. They're smart, they're quick, they have the ability to put a sharp edge on a character, and at a time when most black actors are having a lot of trouble finding good film roles, these two guys are two of the hottest names you can possibly put on a movie marquee. On this program, we're going to be talking about where they came from, what they do best, and how they could screw it up if they play things too safe. Gene starts with Richard Pryor.
Now, one thing that both Richard Pryor and Eddie Murphy have in common is that they were both superb in their very first screen appearance. Pryor in Lady Sings the Blues in 1972, and Murphy 10 years later in 48 Hours. But I must admit that the first time that I knew that Richard Pryor was really someone special was in a little scene western from 1975 called Adios Amigo, directed by Fred Williamson. This was the heyday of the black American movie. Adios Amigo was a black western, and Pryor was absolutely charming, playing a con man on the run, finally finding a friendly face on the plains.
Hey! Anybody in there?
Well, I do declare. Is you what I think you is?
I'm the same as you.
Well, howdy, brother. You don't know how good it does my heart to see another brother out here.
They calls me Sam.
Well,
This supper smells mighty good.
well, my name is Noah. Noah Abraham Winton Brown. The best friend to the free man. Well, listen, I'm to just stay and share a spell with her.
Us? What
Hey, Rufus, Mabel, come on out here.
What y'all doing out here?
Well, you see, I'm a drummer man. I just be moseying from town to town, selling our wares.
Why don't you come on and stay and have supper with us? Sure would be nice. Ain't seen one like him come through here in a long time.
A sweet, sweet smile just lights up the screen. And with that smile, I knew now that Richard Pryor was a star, because stars can just look into the camera. They don't have to say a word, and we can't help but look back. All the energy and joy of a human being is contained in that lively, lively Pryor smile, and not even this low-budget little Western could hide that.
I saw the movie, too, when it first came out
Yeah.
at a theater in Chicago's Loop, and it was interesting how he seemed to have a relationship with the audience right then and there.
Very special, and it's neat to see it in a low-budget little picture where it's just that talent, raw talent all along.
The first time that any audience saw Eddie Murphy, he was a teenage stand-up comedian out on Long Island. And that was when he was still in high school. But in one of the quickest leaps to the top in television history, Eddie Murphy was a star of Saturday Night Live by the time he was only 20. And that's where most people got their first look at him, playing characters like Mr. Robinson, his parody of public TV's Mr. Rogers, the children's friend.
One chilly day in my neighborhood.
Now, what you have there,
brilliant.
that is just fabulous. And what you have there is an enormous amount of anger, and yet at the same time, a lot of understanding, too, and a lot of humor.
Brilliant.
One of Murphy's gifts is that delicate balance he has between anger and laughter. He has that great laugh that he calls his trademark, and then he also has that ability to stop suddenly and be very still and just look at another actor, and you wonder if he's going to explode. He creates a kind of off-base tension that sets up a situation that could go either way.
I got one question. You know, people are going to be talking to us about how this comparison. I once made this comparison in the newspaper, and I got a big reaction. They said, oh, the only reason you're comparing these two guys is because they're black. That's one. That's one reason.
Okay.
But you think we're being off base in comparing them? Are we being racist to put the charge
Richard
out?
Pryor, when he's doing his very best work, and Eddie Murphy, who so far hasn't done anything but his very best work, make me feel the same way. They make me feel as if there is a very sharp-edged intelligence that is loose. Like it's going to knock things over and shake things up and make people see things in a different way. That's a different kind of comic talent than just being funny like Steve Martin or being funny like Jerry Lewis in another generation.
I think the other reason that we can justify doing the show and comparing the two of them is something you said in the introduction, which is that they are, right now, the two funniest guys in the movie.
Well, that's for sure.
Years ago, it was Mel Brooks and Woody Allen. I'm sorry. Right now, Pryor, and I think Eddie Murphy. Coming up next, Richard Pryor and one of his biggest commercial hits, Stir Crazy.
That's right, we bad.
Now we're going to look at the career of Richard Pryor in more detail, beginning with one of the most delightful experiences I've ever had in a movie theater. The year was 1979, and I walked into a downtown Chicago movie theater to see a little film called Richard Pryor Live in Concert, an 85-minute movie consisting of nothing more than film of Pryor on stage doing his concert comedy act. The film wasn't shot well. We mostly saw Pryor from the waist up. It was basically an hour and a half of his talking head, but the audience never stopped laughing uproariously. They were shocked by Pryor's frankness and his language, and one laugh built upon another, especially during his monologue about his having a heart attack.
Man, I was walking in the front yard when I had mine. I was walking along, something said, "Don't breathe." So you heard me. Said, "Don't breathe." Okay, I won't breathe. I won't breathe. I won't breathe. I'm just shut. Okay. That's all. Don't kill me. Don't kill me. Don't kill me. Get on one knee and prove it. I'm on one knee. I'm on one knee. Let me breathe a little bit. Let me breathe a little bit. Just shut up. Thinking about dying now, ain't you? Yeah, I'm thinking about dying. I'm thinking about dying. So you didn't think about it when you was eating that pork.
It's great, and think about that the next time you eat pork. It's true what he's saying, I think. It's very hard to hold center stage all alone in the movies. Barbra Streisand can do it when she sings, and Richard Pryor can do it there when he's talking about his life. But then the list gets awfully short after that.
I don't know of anybody else who's a comedian who's done a concert film unless you go all the way back to some of those documentaries about Lenny Bruce in the 1960s.
Right.
And very few stand-up comedians could carry a film like that.
It's absolutely true. Now, the following year, in 1980, Pryor had his biggest mainstream commercial success, playing to a huge black and white audience in the comedy Stir Crazy, with Pryor and Gene Wilder playing a couple of drifters who bumble their way into being sentenced to jail.
Considering all the facts and arguments presented by both counsel, and after careful deliberation, I find the defendants guilty as charged. Do you wish to waive the right to a pre-sentence hearing?
No. Yes, Your Honor.
Taking into account the severe and ruthless nature of this crime and the bleak prospects for your rehabilitation, I hereby sentence you to serve 125 years in the custody of the Commissioner of the Department of Corrections.
Wait, no, wait. No, sit. You know, we didn't do it. It's a misunderstanding.
That's
We
right.
didn't do it.
We didn't.
I didn't. Our lawyer
I know, I
told
didn't.
us to come up. He's joking. He means
I
we
told
didn't do
you.
it.
See,
we didn't do it.
Have you got the right case?
I think at the end of that scene, he's practically strangling Wilder. Now, Pryor and Wilder had been funny before in Silver Streak, but Stir Crazy was a gigantic hit, and it made Pryor the leading black box office star in the country, replacing Sidney Poitier, who, oddly enough, directed Stir Crazy, sort of a changing of the guard in one film. And what was the secret of Richard Pryor's appeal? I think it was that young people, the most frequent moviegoers, saw the rebel in Richard Pryor now more than they saw his color, and they responded enthusiastically. Pryor spoke their language of rebellion.
One of the problems, though, is that sometimes there's a very thin line between rebellion and self-destruction. Richard Pryor's career was skyrocketing when near tragedy struck on June the 9th, 1980, when Pryor, who was reportedly freebasing cocaine, was severely burned over half of his body. And for a while it was touch and go whether Pryor would live or not, but he did recover. When he returned to performing, he was a little more thoughtful. He said he was off the drugs, but he still had the ability to laugh at himself and at his weaknesses. And in an amazing concert film called Richard Pryor Live on the Sunset Strip, he was able to joke about the fire.
Fire is inspirational. They should use it in the Olympics. Because I did the 100-yard dash in 4.3. And you know something I found out? When you're on fire and running down the street, people will get out of your way. Except for one old drunk, right? He's going, hey, buddy, can we get a light? How about just a little off the sleeve, won't it? Okay?
That's funny, but it's also very painful. In that first Richard Pryor concert film, what I think you were seeing was a young man with talent and self-confidence who was so talented he could almost be reckless with his comic gifts. But in Sunset Strip, what you're seeing there is a different Richard Pryor, a man very conscious of his humanity and his vulnerability, a chastened man. It took a lot of courage for him to make that second film and to deal with his life as directly as he did, and that represents a turning point in his career, a turning point that has probably been better for him personally, oddly enough, than professionally. Because after the fire, Pryor started taking slightly safer roles. He's playing nicer guys now. He's no longer giving the feeling that he can tear the place up. Here he is in Superman 3.
You didn't see the man come flying out of the sky from the clouds. It was him, with his cape flapping in the... His cape was flapping in the wind. He was flying. He was great. He was just flying around. His cape was blowing in the wind like this. It looked like a flag. And he landed right in the middle of this big plantation. Right? And he checked everything out, right, with his X-ray vision before he did this. And then he put these laser beams out of his eyes onto everything. Straight out laser beams. Dried up everything, just like that.
I don't know. I don't think he's all that funny there. I think he's sort of a nebbish. He's not the dangerous, anarchic, sharp-edged Richard Pryor who was always looking for an angle and everything. Pryor has boosted the box office performance of Superman 3. He's proven he can sell a lot of tickets, but I'm not sure that that's all that good for his career. I think he ought to be taking more chances.
Absolutely, and you know, the film that we didn't mention is The Toy, which he was even worse in, and not very, it was just boring. He's doing sort of like he has a perpetual hot foot. I hate to say it, but that's
and going around all the time just being a nice guy and taking care of little children.
This is one of the diseases that can happen to stars, and that is they can become very protective of their careers, and they don't want to play bad guys. The only two actors who seem to be willing to do this lately are De Niro and Hoffman, who've played bad guys over there. I hate to see that happen to, of all people, the anarchic, wild Richard Pryor.
What Richard Pryor owes us, if he owes us anything, after all, after this drug accident, is to be Richard Pryor, not to try to pay his dues by now being a nice guy and tiptoeing around saying, oh, I'm never going to be bad again.
Now listen,
he's got to be the old Richard Pryor.
Okay, but I talked to him about this. I interviewed him recently, and I said, I don't think you're as funny after the fire as you were before the fire. And you know what he said to me? You're right. He says, I am not as funny. He says, I'm probably going to regret saying this. I'm not as funny, but I'm healthier. So that's the situation. Coming up next at the movies, a close look at a young man called the new Richard Pryor, Eddie Murphy.
This evening, I burned up my landlord and I don't feel blue.
A performer like Richard Pryor comes along once in a lifetime, or so we all thought, until the film debut of Eddie Murphy, who was only 21 years old when he made his first feature film as a convict who helps police detective Nick Nolte track down a couple of cop killers in the movie 48 Hours. To do this, Murphy has to get tough in an all-white redneck bar in San Francisco. Now watch how he takes over the bar, this scene, in this movie. This is a star-making scene.
I'll do. Yeah. I'd like something to drink, preferably some vodka. Maybe best have a Black Russian. Black Russian. You would have said Black Russian. That's a funny joke. I get it. I'm black. No, that's funny. No, I'd just rather have plain old vodka. That'd be nice. You know, as long as we standing here talking and we're all friendly, I'm looking for a good old boy by the name of Billy Bear. I was wondering if you might be able to help me find him. Never heard of him. Never heard of him before. Never heard of Billy Bear, huh? Look at here. You heard of him now, man?
That scene goes on. He's like a lion tamer in that
He wipes
bar.
up the floor with those
He sure
guys.
does. Now, what Eddie Murphy has, I think, is the same thing I saw back in 1975 with Richard Pryor in that little Western. A very wise and controlled smile that says, I know what's going on in the world, and what's going on in this movie. And that kind of wisdom was also apparent in Murphy's second film, Trading Places, in which he plays a street panhandler who strikes it rich when a couple of wealthy Philadelphians, two brothers, bet on whether Murphy will turn away from his life of petty crime if they set him up with his own chauffeur and high-paying job. And they make this offer in the back of their limousine.
Say, man, who are y'all? What y'all want with me?
We want to help you, Mr. Valentine. My brother and I run a privately funded program to rehabilitate culturally disadvantaged people. We'd like to supply you with a home of your own, a car, a generous bank account, and employment with our company.
We're going to start you at $80,000 a year.
$80,000?
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. This is a practical joke, right, Brian? Then these dudes a couple of faggots in, huh? Well, what's my next move, man? Thank you, you've been helpful. What about the police and the payroll?
We've had the charges dropped, Mr. Valentine.
You're a free man, Valentine. We can stop right now and you can walk out on us forever.
No. No, I believe I can hang out with you fellas for a little while.
Excellent.
He's absolutely amazing. Now, see, what Murphy does there is just what Pryor does. He's in character for a while as this astonished hustler, but then at the end of that scene, he turns into the smart Eddie Murphy we all know. And he plays the end of that scene sort of winking at us in the audience. That's what the very biggest stars do. They get a little into character, but they also throw in their own special joy in performing for us.
I think the key word is performing, and I think the luckiest thing that has happened to Eddie Murphy is being on Saturday Night Live and being able to be there week after week in different characters, different situations, learning how to act and how to respond. Because as a stand-up comic, he learned what all stand-up comics do, which is immediate feedback, an immediate response, back and forth. In this scene, you can see him waiting, you can see him pausing, you can see him waiting for the action to come to him, and that's acting.
Yeah, he's really honed his skills on Saturday Night Live. Right now, I'd have to say that Murphy is getting better into character than Pryor, who's playing these shim-shammy kind of hotfoot characters. I think Murphy also shows in this film that he can be a terrific dramatic actor. I think his potential is unlimited.
I think Pryor also has unlimited potential if he chooses to use it instead of just going the easy route of being this popular guy that everybody likes. Next on Pryor to Murphy, a problem that both of these guys have in common, the way that they both seem to specialize in playing sidekicks.
Ain't no way to start a partnership.
Now get this. We ain't partners. We ain't brothers and we ain't friends.
We've mentioned before how big Richard Pryor and Eddie Murphy are at the box office, and that's true. But despite their box office appeal, despite the fact that they're two of the few stars who definitely sell tickets, Hollywood doesn't seem very confident about letting them carry a movie all by themselves. Pryor and Murphy seem to be locked into a buddy system, and they're always co-stars with a white actor. Look at these pairings from Richard Pryor's career. Pryor as Jackie Gleason's maid in the holiday movie, The Toy. Pryor and Gene Wilder as fellow passengers in Silver Streak. Pryor and Wilder again as fellow prisoners this time in Stir Crazy. Pryor and Christopher Reeve, the computer wizard meets Superman. Eddie Murphy has made 2 movies so far, both of them on the buddy system. Here he is helping Detective Nick Nolte in 48 Hours. He exchanges lifestyles with Dan Aykroyd in Trading Places. A lot of those pairings worked very well, and they were funny and interesting, but all the same, they sure do look like a pattern, and it would be a real shame if 2 of the best Lone Rangers in American comedy were condemned to playing Tonto all of their lives.
That's a very good point. When I talked to Pryor, he said that he is interested in moving in this direction. He wants to play jazz musician Charlie Parker. He's also talked about playing Malcolm X. I think it would be a great development in his career in particular if he started to play movies that were about his character.
But let's face facts. One of the reasons these guys are always teamed up with an Aykroyd or a Nolte is because they're black. And I think the studios are afraid that the white audience won't come in to see a movie about a black man in the lead with nobody else around. They figure that belongs to the 60s and 70s. I think they're wrong.
I think they're wrong. I'll tell you this. If they don't do it with the fame that they have, it'll never be done. These guys are that hot.
You're absolutely right. That's all for this special show. Join us next week. We'll be back again reviewing the new movies in town, and until then, we'll see you at the movies.
Enjoy another favorite from the makers of Raisinets, Goobers, and Snowcaps. Bit-A-Honey with 6 chewy pieces in every bar. Bit-A-Honey tastes so good and lasts so long. Super Pop Popcorn, a tender, delicious, nutritious snack at an economical price. Super Pop Popcorn, it's the one snack you can't eat alone. Super Pop. Deep Woods Off, the long-lasting family insect repellent that stops mosquitoes from biting you up to 5 full hours.
The movie Eddie Macon's Run, about a wrongly accused prisoner on the run after escaping from jail, has been held up and released to theaters for many months now. The bad news is they could have waited a little longer. This film has a basic flaw, and that is we can predict what's going to happen almost every step of the way. For example, here's a scene late in the movie where escaped convict John Schneider from TV's Dukes of Hazzard has been trailed by Detective Kirk Douglas to a Laredo, Texas motel room and to the wealthy woman who is providing him shelter.
You lose, Marzak. I beat you.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I made it out, and I'm staying out. So why don't you go ahead and pull that damn trigger and get it over with?
You through?
Go on, do it. Go on!
Don't!
Did you ever for a minute think Kirk Douglas was really going to shoot him? Did you ever think for a minute that Schneider was going to shoot Douglas? Of course not. And you'll be able to predict the ending of this movie, too. Eddie Macon's Run doesn't belong in a movie theater. It's a made-for-TV movie in terms of quality, and a mediocre one at that. I'm Gene Siskel at the movies.